Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman, Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, July 31st, 2019. Time for yet another show. There was a debate yesterday. Many of you watched it. And that's the sum total of our... I don't know. We'll try and cover it a little bit. Oh, my gosh. Attacked once again. Though I prepared diligently in order to get ready for the show without any frogs in the throat. It just doesn't matter. We just jump up and grab it. All right, well, I think you can excuse that. Hopefully, and then we'll continue on with the show. Several of you reporting in, for instance, already, and I have invited you to do this in the morning post. You're just going to have to tell me what happened in the debate. I had a meeting. I was making dinner for everybody. I was running people around to various events. Plus, that stuff drives me up the wall. I've admitted it a number of times. Well, anyway, here we are now. Live with the show, Daily Co's Radio now being live, according to Bill, anyway, in Portland, Maine, who really has no say in all of this. I don't have any idea why we hand the show over to him each morning. He's a faithful listener and a great way to start when you don't know what else to do, right? Daily Co's Radio is live now. Kagro X, that's me. I'm ostensibly hosting the show, but I'm telling you what Bill has to say about it, and I hope to tell you that I hope the hell you watched the debate so that I didn't have to. I didn't. It doesn't matter whether I had to or not. I couldn't. Luckily, if you actually did miss the debate and you actually want to know what the hell went on with the debate, Daily Coast, as always, does have eyes on the debate, and some fantastic eyes at that, and they love to share what they see with everyone else who's watching, so always a great place to check in, find out what happened, and get a good recap of the debate that way without having to depend on the punditry to do it for you. So do remember that you can always scroll back, and sometimes you may have to go back a screen or two once things heat up in the morning and more stories get posted, but those live threads are always there. People already chiming in with the things they wanted me to know about the debate, including not one but two people, as a matter of fact, who made sure that I saw that John Delaney's Wikipedia page got changed yesterday immediately after I guess now, well, I don't know if you're Delaney infamous, exchange with Elizabeth Warren. This is one I've already seen the clips of, and I don't know, none of the clips include exactly how the thing got set up, but I guess at some point John Delaney did what he came to do, which was apparently show up and say, I'm so moderate, I'm here to tell you that all the things that other people, other progressives who are on stage either here tonight or trapped in tomorrow night's debate, I don't know whether you would consider it a trap, I don't know how they divided the things up, but all the things you want to do are difficult or impossible, and you're never going to convince a Republican Senate to go along with it, or Republican senators if they are in the minority, and you got to be bipartisan because reasons, and how are you going to pay for all the standard tropes. And I guess Elizabeth Warren was prepped for that, and she had a plan for it, and there's nothing wrong with being prepared for something like this, especially when you know it's coming. If you weren't prepared for it, that would be a problem. And she said, look, I don't understand why anybody goes through the trouble of running for president to come out here and tell everybody what you can't do and what you can't fight for. I say I don't know exactly what set it up, because the only speech from Delaney in the clip that's circulating is him saying, we can do it, which is the opposite of her saying, why did you come here and say we can't do it? But I assume that all went pretty much according to everyone else's understanding, and that he had spent the time telling people, well, he wanted to do his things and bring down, I guess, prescription drug prices, et cetera, but not on any of the crazy things like let people have Medicare if they want it and it's working well. And so all right, so he set himself up for that one, and the Wikipedia page entry includes a date of death, which was of course fixed on yesterday, July 30th, 2019. Died in Detroit, Michigan at Democrat debate by Senator Elizabeth Warren. So apparently she had a hand in fixing that date, and everybody really enjoyed the fact that it was changed. And I'm sure it's been changed back by now, but lots of people had screen grabs for it. Looks like Ken Klippenstein was sharing that widely, and everybody grabbed onto that and has shared it. A number of you sent it my way, some of you using the KITM hashtag, others just in general, and others just letting everybody in the public know that had happened. All right. Well, that is that's the entertaining moment of the night. Although I also did see a lot of discussion about Marianne Williamson. Again, one being at the debate, then people poking fun at her for being who she is and showing up at the debate as such, and but that apparently she delivered a decent take on the idea of reparations for the black community, for African American citizens. And made a decent case for them, which was nice, and everybody was acknowledging that, and lots of people basically taking the approach of, well, I think she's a crackpot, but she gave a good answer on reparations, saying, look, this is a payment on a debt that's owed to, well, essentially the people who put the labor into building the country. And, well, okay, acknowledged. I don't know whether that's going to go any further than that, but at the very least, she fulfilled the proper function of a Democratic primary and gave other people good lines, good ideas, good framing for something, even if it doesn't turn out to be a big part of their platform or ever come up again in a debate or anything else. But it comes up from time to time, certainly, and a good answer provided there. So I think that's it. That's all I have to tell you about what made it through my debate filter. Though it really is a good idea to say, take a peek over at Daily Kos and see what's being shared there. Besides the live blog, for instance, this morning we have Mark Sumner's piece, Tuesday night's debate was staged to generate the fight that the media wanted, but it's not real. And that's one of the reasons I usually skip out on debates like this, particularly when it's so many candidates that, everyone sort of enters the arena with the idea in mind that there's no way to break through except to involve yourself in such a fight. And it's kind of frustrating to watch. Scrolling all the way back to last night's coverage, let me see, how many live threads were there? There were 5 live threads. And if she's up to it, Joan McCarter might be able to join us. I'm not certain what her status is for today. We know that Greg Dworkin is on his way out to, or I don't know, maybe he's already there, but he's out on vacation. That's the real point. He won't be here for our early hour roundup. We'll see. I don't think Joan is on her way to Alaska, but you never know what may be occupying her time these days. It's vacation season. People take off and she's got to step in. But it looks like she actually handled live thread coverage for the front page yesterday. And so, well, if she's up to it, she'll certainly have had she'll share with you her front row seat. That is to say, no one sat in between her and the television on which she was watching the debate. And so she got the same view, the rest of the country got. But I didn't, because I was sitting in a planning meeting for something entirely different. Well, not that I really would have loved watching the debate anyway. And it drives everybody in my house crazy. They cannot stand it. So, there's only so much you can put up with. But there's the live threads. I see 5 of them from last night. And then the coverage begins. Our own punditry, our own spin, or maybe it's just a roundup of everyone else's, begins with Barbara Morrell's take on things, or at least the headline she gave it, who won Tuesday night's Democratic presidential debate? After all, isn't that what everyone came to find out? The answer is, I don't know. They asked everybody else at the site, and they took a poll, and now by reading through the poll, I can inform myself, all right, who the hell was there last night? And then by process of elimination, probably name 5 or 6 of the people who will be there tonight, I guess, for the second night of the debates. So Steve Bullock, Tim Ryan, Marianne Williamson, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, John Hickenlooper, and John Delaney. I don't have a vote in this, or at least one that would make sense, although I didn't cast one, so I could do it live on the air. You can all lobby me. How about that? And then you can tell me, oh yeah, as a matter of fact, if I click on the results without voting, this is a good, it's a good fail-safe here. They won't allow me to vote if I view the results first. So I'm fine with that. Let's see. Okay, not much of a surprise here. As it turns out, the voters on the site, whether this is scientific or not, serious or not, this is what I have to tell you. Bernie Sanders comes out on top by a large margin, according to the voters on the site. And there's I mean, from all reports, there was good reason to think that if you were already a Bernie Sanders supporter, certainly, well, you know how these things go. People tend to see it that way. But not a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination. And I did have one complaint that came in during the debates, like live as they were happening. And our friend Darwin Darko made this comment saying, did anyone else notice, really? He just starts in with anyone. Anyone else notice CNN only puts up chyrons that throw shade at Bernie Sanders? He says, I'm no stan here, but this stuff, let's say, looks like a glaring political hit job. I did not notice it because, of course, I wasn't watching. But he says, you know, it doesn't chalk himself up as a big-time Bernie fan, just sort of thought things were unfavorable, to say the very least. And I can well imagine that happening. And I think I did see other people saying, yeah, I mean, it's like CNN has a mission to make sure that mainstream America doesn't get too excited about anything Bernie Sanders is saying. So some of that may be reaction. Some of that may just be, well, we've got a lot of Bernie Sanders fans hanging around at Daily Kos. Some of it may be, we got to win the poll. That does happen from time to time. He racks up 59% of the votes cast here in the Daily Kos poll. That's 11,495 of them. Second place, so to speak. I mean, I hate to break it down this way. And in fact, I mean, there's essentially nobody else in the race. It's Bernie Sanders, 59%, Elizabeth Warren, 29%. So what's that, 60, 70, 90% of the votes go to those two. And that's not crazy. I mean, look at who else is on the stage. These are all people who are polling in the single digits or zeros. And likewise, they poll the same way here. Pete Buttigieg is the only one really registering much of anything at all, at only 6%. I mean, there's only 10% left to go here, right? The only one above a single digit besides those three is Marianne Williamson, who got 2%. That's worth 469 votes. And I don't know whether it was New Age fans or whether people were just giving her credit for the reparations line or what. Amy Klobuchar registering 1%. John Delaney getting the 1%, Beto O'Rourke getting the 1%, and really more messages I've seen calling for him to just please run for Senate in Texas instead. 1% also for Steve Bullock, zeros for Tim Ryan and John Hickenlooper, which sounds about right. Only comment I saw about either of the two of them, I didn't see anybody saying anything about Hickenlooper. Only thing I saw about Tim Ryan was somebody saying towards the end of the debate that gosh, he's an a-hole. And so I thought, that seems like a bad sign. Don't you think? All right. Well, note from Joan, she'll be here as expected during the second hour, or at normal staffing levels at this point in early August. So that's kind of good news. So anything that's wrong with the front page, you'll have to blame on just flat incompetence, I guess, at this point. Not that there is anything wrong, but you know, we kid because we love. Who won the night's Democratic presidential debate? I guess the answer there, Bernie Sanders, according to those who bothered to chime in to vote. Barb's got nothing to say about that. It was purely a question of, what did you think? When the analysis begins to roll in, we start with Jen Hayden, who says, night one of the Democratic debate in Detroit, Twitter names the winners and losers. So rather than Daily Kos telling you what happened, Let's ask Twitter, and I bet, let's see if it's similar. Night one of the CNN Democratic debates from Detroit featured some crystal clear winners and some crystal clear losers. No one loves to be a crystal clear loser, but at least you're clear. That's important, I think. First up, CNN was the biggest loser. There's a good answer. The format was terrible from the start, as is usually the case with debates in general, to be honest. They spent the first 10 minutes doing cheesy introduction videos of each candidate, done in a reality show format as if they were introducing the newest contestants on Survivor or American Ninja Warrior, followed by a lengthy flag presentation and national anthem. Wow. Twitter users immediately erupted into complaints about the start of the program and the hurried nature of the questions. As soon as the candidate started to give a substantive answer, is it Dana or Dana Bash? I don't know. Anyway, she was there to cut them off and say it was time to move on. As a result, the viewers were the biggest losers of all. With that said, let's get to the roundup. Buckle up, and here we go. Okay, Jen, buckle up is always a good idea. Please do it. It saves lives. Elizabeth Warren came punching right out of the gate. Here's a tweet from Variety, noting Elizabeth Warren, or quoting her, saying, "Donald Trump disgraces the office of the president every single day." That seems like a good applause line. Terrell Starr, who's, let's see, do we have to click through to find out who that actually is? A reporter for The Root. I don't know everybody's. I'm terrible with the names and identifying people's outlets, but I would like to be able to offer that. So our Terrell Starr from The Root says, so Elizabeth Warren is the first candidate to get a rise out of the black audience here at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. She got cheers and a say that. Bernie also getting some love from people here too, and applause. So that at least jibes with our polling results. At least the two standouts are the same ones, even if so far the numbers are flipped. But it's just one tweet we're working off here. So she further landed a blow, Warren, I guess, when she interrupted John Delaney to remind everyone to stop using Republican talking points. Seems like an important point to let everybody know. David M. Perry. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Sarah Reese Jones, by the way. And again, we'll have to click through to just tell you exactly who she is. Let's see. Politics USA. Okay. Boss at 100% people powered Politics USA. Just to let you know, she looks rather familiar too. I think we've seen her around once or twice or 10 or 15 times. Okay, let's see. Next up in the commentary here, David Perry, who's a columnist at Pacific Stand. I don't believe we've called his number before, so welcome to the show here, David Perry, who made the other observation I saw much shared yesterday, putting, what's the name of this character from King of the Hill, side by side with Delaney here, and definitely saw that getting some big shares. Bernie Sanders went right at Amazon to big applause, according to Jen here, and Bernie's own tweet, whether he wrote it or not, is illustrating the point here. Tonight, 34 million Americans are uninsured, but health insurance and drug companies made $100 billion in profits last year. People are homeless, but companies like Amazon did not pay a nickel in income tax. We have to come together and transform this country. That will be a good applause line in a Democratic debate. Daily Show had a bit of fun as well. Their tweet says, damn, does FaceApp now show you what you would look like if you're polling above 0%? Transforming, I guess, the picture of Amy Klobuchar into that of Elizabeth Warren. Pete Buttigieg stood up for progressives. That's nice of him. Saying we can't be concerned what Republicans call us. They will paint us as extremists no matter what. That always seems true. And apparently that was the line of the night to that point, according to Brian Tyler Cohen, former managing editor of Occupy Democrats, a former contributor at Huffington Post, and a current Twitter person. The end. That's all I've got for you. Okay. There's only so much I can do with the Twitter bios and no knowledge whatsoever of what people are doing in the marketplace. All right. You get the idea, and I think probably not much point in reading you everyone's tweets when Jen has done such a good job compiling them for you. Just want to give you and really myself some idea of what thoughts were being traded yesterday as the debate was going on. Let me keep scrolling through the rest of the coverage because we do get to some home-baked analysis here eventually. Laura's piece here, Sanders and Warren's ideas and beatdowns of competitors define another debate marred by moderators. Yeah, that sounds about right. Also, sounds like what we usually get served up. I'm just going to scan the headlines here. And then I think the debate coverage ends for the night and picks up again this morning with Mark Sumner's piece. Tuesday night's debate was staged to generate the fight that media wanted, but it's not real. And I think both those headlines probably ring bells with all of us. I'll save maybe we'll in fact go over their pieces a little bit later on, but I'm going to save the topic of the debate for a little later, although it's a little presumptuous of me to think that after spending the night covering the debate, Joan would actually want to talk more about the debate. So we'll leave the door open for that or any other subject that she may want to bring up when she joins us. You know, I'm not going to chain her down to doing that. But if that's on her mind, we'll be discussing it. If it's not, we can always, again, I'll point you to these pieces. You know where to find them. It's Daily Kos Radio. I'll bet you can find the Daily Kos blog and read it. I do have other things burning holes in my figurative pocket, as represented by my literal use of the actual application called Pocket. And one of the things I meant to do today, and I haven't failed at it yet, but I have so far, is to go back to yesterday's reading of the ABC News reports that were, I thought, inexplicably divided into two separate stories. Benjamin Siegel and Matthew Mosk did the one of the two that I thought was the more important, and I think there was a third author on the other one. But they picked up on the report out of the House Oversight Committee, chaired, of course, by Elijah Cummings, who came in for vicious attack going on like a week now from Donald Trump, although the article makes the claim that Trump just sort of launched into the attack generally because, well, Elijah Cummings is a Democrat and he's black and he's investigating Trump and making trouble for him. And the article alleges that Trump had no foreknowledge of the issuance of this report, but I think that he did, although whether it registered with him because he's a mental incompetent, I have no idea. But certainly Republican operatives and White House operatives would have had every opportunity to know the report was coming based on other things that the report mentions, like the fact that the minority views on the report were issued last week. So that's a pretty good hint that such a report is coming. And why bother, if you're Donald Trump, why bother waiting to read the report to get angry about the contents when you can just read the Republican talking points on the report and repeat those and inflate those, and do so spurred on by the vitriol of Fox News. So there's no reason to wait. How they drew the conclusion that he didn't know, although as I recall, all they really were willing to say was that there's no proof that he had any foreknowledge that it was coming. But I don't see how you could not have it. But then again, I expect the president to work, 5 days a week at the least, and to receive briefings about what the important happenings in the world of politics from his advisors. That's obviously a mistake in the current era. Anyway, I didn't get all the way through the article, and for our purposes, longtime listeners who recognized the contents of the second article as a long-time theme of the corruption of the people working in the Trump campaign, the best part was at the end, and I didn't get to it. So to recap, there was the first article which was the one I thought most widely shared by the Twitter punditry that I tend to follow. And I happened to notice that Chris Hayes was retweeting another reporter's extreme interest in the first article generated by the issuance of the report, which was the news that the Trump staff, the speech writing and foreign policy staff, had shared the America First energy speech that he gave in North Dakota during the campaign, had shared a first draft with apparently people in the government of the United Arab Emirates, and that they made edits and requests for further edits of the speechwriting staff in the America First energy speech, which is a little odd, and as they pointed out, raised the eyebrows among federal investigators as outside the norms of the sorts of consultation with foreign governments that you might ordinarily see in a campaign. I mean, I don't think it can be completely unknown. If you are addressing issues of foreign policy that can be delicate, I doesn't surprise me that if your campaign has contacts, you might run something by them to see how does it play. But apparently this exceeded even that threshold. The second story, though, I thought was the more interesting, which focused on the long time standing plan among some private sector actors who had connections in government and in the campaign and connections overseas in the Middle East to sell nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia and the UAE as well, and just sort of have it proliferate across, let's say, that part of the Middle East which is supposedly allied with us, which is really a dangerous sounding idea and a little bit worrisome. So we'll get back to that after this break. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, with a brand new interruption to say thanks to all of you who support the show. Remember when I told you that our average monthly donation was about $7, for which you were getting 2 great hours of news and entertainment 5 days a week, and how that came out to about 70 cents an hour? That's a pretty good deal. Except it's wrong. The math actually works out closer to 17 cents an hour. It is hard to beat a deal like that, and even harder to send your kids to college on. Thankfully, Patreon.com makes it easy to make that work. Patreon, Patreon.com, is the simple, secure way to make recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Just search for me or the show name on the site, and they make it easy to crowdfund the show so that the power of our numbers can keep the show going for just a few bucks a month. Once again, thanks so much for all your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Okay, just a quick note to bring us up to speed here. I note that, let's see, I have Simon Rosenberg's tweet here, noting that Matthew Miller, just to trace the chain of custody all the way back, Matthew Miller, and first tweeting that he is sort of amazed that this is still on John Ratcliffe's House website, given that it was exposed as a lie 2 days ago. I guess they're just going to go full Trump and say the sky is not blue. That would, of course, be his claim at having been a big-time terrorist, anti-terrorist prosecutor, and having, I guess, personally arrested 300 illegal aliens in a single day. Simon Rosenberg commenting further that by lying about prosecuting terrorists, Ratcliffe has obviously disqualified himself from the job of ODNI. Burr and other Republicans just have to make this clear to Trump now and move on to another more suitable candidate. It says in a close call, country over party, please. That's not going to convince him, but I mean, it is true that a normal president would probably move on from this point and be considering someone else entirely. Yes. We talked about that yesterday, and we'll see, what Trump decides to do with that. Also, just for the record, I wanted to take note of this, and I'm sure Joan will probably want to revisit this. lots of reports that the Moscow Mitch McConnell tag is getting under McConnell's skin and really bothering him. So I hope that that's actually true. Sometimes it's difficult to believe that you can get any of these politicians perturbed, some of these really skilled ones. But I'd like to think that that's true. I just happened to see earlier a tweet from The Hill go by with a quote from him. That was interesting. I guess his take on things. He's now quoted as saying, "There's total agreement that the Russians were trying to impact the 2016 election. There's also almost total agreement that in 2018 they failed totally because of the great job done by the administration." I think that's an excellent attempt at escape. I guess if you're a Republican, that might work with you. Of course, it was well crafted by the staff of the guy who did everything he could to make sure that the Russian plans that were well known to the Republican leadership, as evidenced by the other day, I guess Monday's rereading of the 2016, June 2016 transcript of the conversation among House Republican leaders. They were well aware of what the Russians were doing and that they were doing it everywhere. And Mitch McConnell is, of course, the guy who said, "I am going to make sure that the current president of the United States, a Democrat, Barack Obama, can't do anything to prevent what's happening here because I know this will inure to the benefit of Republicans." So, hence the Moscow Mitch moniker. It sticks, but he's trying to work around that, and I guess that's worth noting, I suppose. All right, let's see. Other items worth discussion. Like I said, we were going to go back to the second of the two articles from ABC News, the one that focused on the plan that Mike Flynn, notorious spy Mike Flynn, was so heavily involved in, and so many other actors, apparently, as it turns out, including Tom Barrack, who was the chairman of the Trump inauguration and keeps claiming that he can't have a conflict of interest because he's never served in the Trump government, though he did do everything he could to try and seek a job inside the Trump government. He just didn't get it, which is really kind of fascinating. I'd love to know what it was about Barrack in Trump's mind that kept him from giving his good friend what he wanted. But we haven't gotten to the bottom of that one yet. But both Barrack and Flynn involved in the effort to convince the Trump government that it would be in everybody's, that is to say their personal interest, to push forward this plan, as they call the Marshall Plan for the Middle East, because the Middle East is so impoverished. The Marshall Plan for the Middle East to sell nuclear technology to them. And when I say nuclear technology, they're outwardly only talking about nuclear power generation. They wanted to build something like 35 nuclear power plants throughout the Middle East. And I don't know where they're going to put them, quite honestly. I don't know what the power demands of Gulf states that we would sell nuclear power plants to really are. I mean, I would have guessed many years ago, even when they were oil rich, that the demands were pretty low. But these days, a lot of the UAE states in particular have built these incredibly, I'm sure, energy demanding, energy intensive cities in the desert with all of their money. And so maybe their power demands really are of the caliber that would I don't know whether they demand, but benefit from nuclear power. Maybe it's just a matter of, well, every barrel of oil we extract from the ground here, we should be selling. We don't want to burn that stuff here when we can sell it elsewhere, especially if we can use some of this money to buy nuclear power plants and make it possible to export and sell everything that we extract. Anyway, I don't know that 35 of them can really be put to decent use. And of course, there's always the worry that, well, putting fissile material out there is kind of scary. Maybe it's, maybe we're racially profiling. Ooh, scary Arabs plus terrorism, therefore. But, it's a real issue. And one we don't understand. I mean, we may have the wrong impression. It's true, but we've had the wrong impression for a long time. Things like, oh, well, the Saudis, that's, they're allies. And the entirety of their government, therefore, because this is how we think of Western governments, right? Even when we know that there's internal opposition politically, we know that we expect that Western governments operate this way. The government is the one in power. The out party may try to curtail their power, may try to supplant their power, but for the time being, the government speaks for the country, and the country functions with more or less one foreign policy voice. And so I guess we think the same thing of Saudi Arabia, even though we've never really had a clear concept of what that country is anyway. We just impose the Western idea of it's a Western-style nation state with a flag and everything, and a government that speaks for everyone there. And it really isn't, and it never was. And we should stop thinking that it is, and then we will stop being baffled by things like they're our ally, and yet they're also funding terrorism. And, members of the royal family would certainly be part of one cohesive unit speaking with one voice, right? Well, no. And we think of the royal family as well. Queen Elizabeth, if she got in a disagreement with Prince Charles, well, they would settle it and decide to speak with one voice and issue a nice press release and be very polite. And that's not necessarily the way it is in monarchies everywhere, and probably not the way it is in monarchies where you have, 60 plus princes at the same time. And in some cases, any number of whom can be expected to ascend to the throne at some point based on how many of the other 60 just happen to die along the way for various reasons. So it's a complex place, and we've never really understood it, and there's no guarantee we get it now. Anyway, so a very interesting exposition of the ongoing plan to sell a lot of nuclear technology to at least two of the Gulf states, the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And then things really started to kind of heat up. We saw discussion of Flynn's use of his 2015 trip to Moscow to go to the RT gala, at which he sat at the same table as Vladimir Putin and Jill Stein, as has been pointed out in the past, but was left out of this article for whatever reason, because she's kind of a historical footnote, I guess. We learned about Bud McFarlane's interest in all of this and his inclusion in the insider ranks and trying to get this to happen. You might wonder if it was such a great idea, why hasn't it been brought up before, or hasn't it made any progress before now? And I think the answer is because prior to the Trump administration, no one believed that there would ever be an American administration that would okay the transfer of that much nuclear technology and nuclear material to Middle Eastern states. Only someone like Trump, who would be motivated by, well, wouldn't it be great if we all made millions or even billions of dollars doing this, and to hell with the national security implications, because who cares about that? We'll all be dead. We want to roll around in money before we die. Only Trump would countenance such a thing, to the extent that he's capable of countenancing that or anything else at all. I guess also on top of the blatant corruption, there were the connections that he was actually close friends with a large number of the people who stood to personally benefit. So they would be able to convince a Trump government to actually go through with something this stupid. The really important stuff we just began to touch on before we cut off. So let me scroll down to that. Let's see, where should we begin here we are. Begin our entry back into the article. Maybe with a recap of this section, Tom Barrack's renewal of his lobbying efforts. We did discuss this in yesterday's show, but towards the end, as Flynn, continued to consult on this big project in 2017. That is to say, while he was National Security Advisor, which is amazing. Barak, a prominent Trump supporter with longstanding business ties to the Middle East, worked to secure a prime place of influence inside the White House. So he was trying mightily to be inside the government. While he was in talks with Trump about a role as special envoy to the Middle East, or ambassador to the UAE, where he was trying to sell this material, Barak was communicating with advocates for the Saudi nuclear plan, including then National Security Council Deputy Director K.T. McFarland and the old National Security Advisor for the Reagan years, Bud McFarlane, according to the report. K.T. McFarland, by the way, sometimes mentioned in the early days as, though certainly right-wing, I think most people considered her a little bit more professional and grounded than Mike Flynn in all of this. And then it turns out that she was just as mixed up in all of this plan as he was. Barak met Trump at the White House. Remember this? He bookended Mr. Bonesaw's meeting with the president early on, before he had murdered Khashoggi, while we were still in the mode of, oh, he's a reformer and he's the new Middle East, and there was the big PR push was on. And I didn't check on this, but I think it has to be the case that this must have been the visit to the United States for which he and the government of Saudi Arabia both were faulted for not following protocol and alerting the State Department to his plans to visit. And how interesting that not only did they not alert the State Department to the plans, but that where was he going? For a personal meeting with the president in the White House. And P.S., they bookended his discussion with the president with meetings with Tom Barak, who didn't have a governmental role, but was busy lobbying to try to get the government to okay the sale of nuclear material to the country run by, or about to be run by, the guy who would A, become a murderer, and B, the president had just met with. But, no conflicts of interest there. Barak told a business associate he briefed Trump before and after this meeting with the Saudi deputy crown prince and helped facilitate the prince's visit. So Tom Barak knew he was coming. The State Department didn't. This, according to text messages cited in the report. Those text messages also indicate that Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, you know that, and a White House senior advisor, and you're sorry about that, participated on a call with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and leader of the UAE, who is closely aligned with Saudi Arabia. Barak later emailed Kushner about his potential role in the administration, I guess trying to get in on that action, make sure I get that special job created for me so that I can pull off this money-making deal. After thinking through our discussion this week, it might be an interesting idea to have the special envoy position hold responsibility for implementing the economic agenda and related action items that will arise out of your Saudi-sponsored summit, he wrote, according to the report. In other words, wouldn't it be a great idea to make the special envoy to the Middle East, A, me, and B, responsible for implementing the economic agenda, which I suggest would be us selling them nuclear technology. That would be very helpful for me. I would really love that. I would make a lot of money. Can you arrange that? In the days following Trump's meeting with the Saudi Deputy Crown Prince, IP3 leaders, that's the company looking to implement this plan, IP3 leaders engaged with senior Trump administration officials to promote the nuclear proposal, according to former Defense Secretary James Mattis, Energy Secretary, this is not according to them, but including them. I made the same mistake yesterday. Mattis, Perry, and Wilbur Ross at Commerce. 3 people who would have no inclination whatsoever to put the brakes on such a deal. So, good choices for meetings. In a March 17th, 2017 letter to the Saudi leader, IP3 officials said the agreements between the president and the Saudi ruler established the framework for our unique opportunity to take the next steps with IP3 and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Right? We remember this. Soon after, Barak began corresponding with top officials at IP3 about a plan to bid for Westinghouse Electric. The letter, in fact, the March 17th letter, referenced a partnership to acquire Westinghouse Electric, as they say here, a U.S.-based company, you know that manufactures nuclear reactors. I said they also manufacture nuclear warheads, but I don't think that they currently do that now. I looked into that, and I think, I don't know if they are in fact in that business, but there was a bug in the back of my mind that said, yeah, I think they used to actually build those warheads, at least for 1980s vintage missiles. And that may still be true, or maybe I just misremember that. But there aren't that many American companies that make nuclear reactors, I don't think. Westinghouse Electric is one of them, but what an interesting point they are in at this plan. The plan here, again, IP3 is going to get governmental permission somehow, and they're going to sell 35 nuclear reactors to the UAE and Saudi Arabia. But how many nuclear reactors has IP3 ever built? And the answer is none. They are not in the business of building nuclear reactors. That seems like a huge hole in the plan. But they're thinking, they said, about a partnership that would allow them to acquire. They're just going to buy Westinghouse Electric, which seems like a pretty major purchase. But I don't know. This is one of the amazing things about the world of business. Like, you hatch a plan to sell nuclear reactors, 35 of them, to anywhere. It doesn't matter what the country is. It does in this case, but in a hypothetical, if you're going to sell 35 nuclear reactors, you probably should have some nuclear reactors or know how to build some nuclear reactors. The plan here, though, is to, well, when the time comes, if we're approved, why bother spending all the money learning how to build nuclear reactors only to have the plan foiled, right? If the plan gets approved, I'll buy a company that makes nuclear reactors. And that's going to be an expensive prospect. But these days you can do it. Really, actually, all you need is like people the guys who, invented Instagram could say, this weekend I'm going to buy Westinghouse Electric, which is amazing. The market cap of these apps that do nothing, or, allow you to take a picture of a cake you baked and make it look like a cupcake instead of a large cake by transforming the picture. That guy's got enough money to buy Westinghouse Electric. Whatever. That's a comment on our economy in general. See me later about that one. Anyway, so here's what goes on. Barrick and people at IP3 start talking about, hey, let's buy Westinghouse. Do you have enough money to buy Westinghouse? I don't on my own, or I do, but I don't want to spend all my money. How about you? And to begin talking about a partnership to bid for Westinghouse in what Democrats believe, at least the investigatory Democrats on the Oversight Committee believe, to be one of the partners in this was to be the Saudi Public Investment Fund, their sovereign wealth fund. So basically, a big part of this is we'd like to have 35 nuclear power plants in Saudi Arabia. We don't know how to build them, but we would like to buy Westinghouse Electric and then arrange for them to be, it's like ordinarily a legitimate transaction, but you can see where it raises national security eyebrows, right? The Saudis want to buy Westinghouse Electric. That seems like a strategic asset. And we know they want to build nuclear power plants in their country. And maybe we're kind of uncomfortable about that because of what can happen when nuclear material is spread out all over the world. And Tom Barrick is in the business of making that happen, and probably doing it in such a way that regulators don't immediately find out that it's the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund providing the bulk of the money to buy Westinghouse. I would guess that they would want to hide the ball on that. IP3 officials met with Kushner in August on their proposal to acquire Westinghouse, which under the agreement would be the main partner in the effort to build the more than 30 nuclear reactors in Saudi Arabia. So you see what they're cobbling together here. Now, in a memo to Stephen Schwartzman, whose name jumped out at me yesterday, the CEO of Blackstone, one of the private equity firms he contacted about potentially bidding in this effort to acquire Westinghouse, Barrick said Saudi Arabia and the UAE have committed to invest in the Westinghouse acquisition and are willing to concurrently lock in Westinghouse as their primary partner on the 30-plus reactors expected to be constructed in the coming decade. Blackstone declined to partner with Colony. I can only assume that that the reasoning here is I will get arrested somehow in all this, and he was too smart to go in on it. Because, again, what they're talking about here is I'm going to put together a coalition of Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, UAE's Sovereign Wealth Fund, my money, and the company involving all these ex-generals, IP3. And together we're all going to buy Westinghouse and sort of hide the ball on that. And the stock in Westinghouse is going to go through the roof because, as it turns out, the people who are buying the thing are also going to be their customers and are going to place an order for 35 nuclear power plants. And we know that. That's why we're buying it. You would just be a blind investor, except then you would probably end up getting arrested on insider trading charges later on. And I guess he decided to walk away for it. Or else he knew that anyone that closely associated with Donald Trump was likely to lose all their money. Anyway, while that bid for Westinghouse was unsuccessful, Barrick in January of 2018 began corresponding with a top official at Brookfield Asset Management, a firm that acquired Westinghouse. They did eventually buy Westinghouse. This, according to emails cited in the report. Barrick began talking to Brookfield, offering his assistance in the acquisition and I guess probably in helping guide this deal through for the 30-plus nuclear reactors. This is of interest because, as I just mentioned, remember, Barrick is talking to Jared Kushner about this. Here's where it gets really interesting, unless you've had the bell rung for you already by Brookfield Asset Management. More than a month later, an employee at Barrick's firm, Colony Northstar, sent a slide presentation to another associate suggesting it had been invited to contribute $50 million to Brookfield's bid for Westinghouse. So I don't know whether the sovereign wealth funds are still involved, but it's not going to be Blackstone. Instead, it's going to be Brookfield with some partners probably buying Westinghouse. On August 1st, 2018, Brookfield completed the acquisition of Westinghouse after securing final government approval for the deal from the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. Probably a familiar term to use, CFIUS, is how they kind of refer to it by the acronym, Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. It may ring a bell for you, actually, from the Uranium One. Was that the name of the stupid company that Trump conspiracy theorists insisted was Russian-backed and bought up the Russian bidders who bought the American uranium mining concern, and how dare she arrange? She's the one who's really colluding with Russia. She sold all our uranium to them, and the defense was, well, in order to get a transaction like that approved, you got to get it through CFIUS, which is in fact a multi-part board. It wouldn't just Hillary Clinton alone wouldn't be able to give the go-ahead to that purchase. And that's true because CFIUS has a lot of constituent members. But I'll read to you a little bit about CFIUS and see if you get what I'm getting at here. They say right here in the article, just to give you a glance at this paragraph again. August 1st, 2018, well into the Trump administration, Brookfield acquires Westinghouse after securing government approval. So the government has to review this. Can Brookfield buy Westinghouse? Ordinarily, probably doesn't raise too many eyebrows. American company buying Westinghouse. Whether or not the government knows there are other partners, whether or not those other partners are sovereign wealth funds of foreign countries, I'm not sure yet. But remember, it has to be approved by CFIUS, a review board filled by cabinet secretaries. It's not clear whether Barrick's company participated in the successful bid. It seems like that should be crystal clear. If CFIUS has to get involved in approving the sale, you would think they would demand ordinarily to know exactly who's involved in it because they're reviewing something because national security implications, right? So they would want to know who's buying it and who's involved in the bid. I would think that would be a pretty important part of the process. Anyway, the thing is, you can see now why how shall we put this? Why it would have been difficult for for Hillary Clinton to single-handedly arrange a corrupt sale of a uranium company to the Russians without anybody else noticing. But you could see, by the same token, how it might happen corruptly in the Trump administration. So the purchase, without real clear details about who's making the purchase, apparently, gets approved by CFIUS. Here are the constituent members of the CFIUS board here. It's the Department of the Treasury is the chair of the group. That's, of course, right now, Stephen Mnuchin. The Department of Justice has a seat. That's, of course, Bill Barr. As between the two of them, do we have any hope of stopping the corruption? I don't think so. The Department of Homeland Security has a seat there. And now I think the director or the acting director of Homeland Security is the guy from Customs and Border Patrol, right? I can't remember his, McLennan, was that his last name? The Department of Commerce, Wilbur Ross owns the fourth chair in all this. And just a minute ago, we were talking about how he might even possibly be involved in the plan to make the sale itself. Not likely able to avoid a conflict of interest there. The Department of Defense is the next constituent member. The Department of State, that's where Hillary Clinton would have come in, and where now that's Mike Pompeo, so that's no help. The Department of Energy, Rick Perry, he's not going to have any insight into all of this, and he was already briefed on the thing, so he's already on board. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, that's a nobody. They won't care what they have to say. The Office of Science and Technology Policy has a seat there. No one's going to listen to that. Also, others participating in the decision-making, sometimes with observer status and sometimes with active voting status. Office of Management and Budget, that's still Mick Mulvaney. The Council of Economic Advisors, the National Security Council, the National Economic Council, and the Homeland Security Council all have a say in these things. In other words, in this Trump cabinet, if a deal comes through with the seal of approval from Jared Kushner that Tom Barrack and a couple of Saudi princes want to buy Westinghouse, do you think it gets stopped? Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Pre-negotiating a deal now with Armando, who has he's got questions. He's got a question. I don't know whether he's going to come on the air to do it or not, but questions for Joan. So we're preparing for that. He tells me that his question is LOL, and my question is in parts. So, of course, that usually is accompanied with the obligatory, well, it's not really, it's really more of a comment than a question. We'll see whether that's really the case. I have only one question for Mr. Mellon in 27 parts, I think was the line. Anyway, actual questions. Maybe I'll come on, he threatens. Well, we'll see whether we can make that work engineering-wise. But anyway, let's quickly get back to the exciting conclusion of the story we began yesterday, where it really heats up, before I run out of time again. So again, they're in contact with Jared Kushner, saying that a bunch of sovereign wealth funds and the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia and the UAE may or may not want to buy Westinghouse, along with this Brookfield Asset Management Group. What does Brookfield know about buying Westinghouse Electric or making nuclear power plants? Maybe nothing. I don't know what Brookfield is all about. And I would have no reason in particular to doubt them, except that I know who they are or who they eventually become anyway. So they're telling Jared Kushner, we really think it would be great if Tom Barrack got this job as special envoy. And if the job of the special envoy was to implement an economic program on behalf of the United States with respect to, aimed at the poor nations of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, who clearly need a Marshall Plan. Can I please be the one to implement that? P.S. I may or may not have told you, I'm plotting with some ex-generals to put together some private equity capital to buy Westinghouse Electric and build 30 nuclear power plants for these Middle Eastern princes. Can you see what you can do about making that happen? Now, what incentive does Jared Kushner have to help Tom Barrack in all this? I mean, it might work because Barrack is known to be a close friend of Trump's, and he just presided relatively successfully in grifting terms over the enormous theft ring organized under the heading of Donald Trump's inaugural committee. So maybe he wants to please Dad or make more money or whatever. But there's an additional factor in all this, as I mentioned, Brookfield Asset Management. The House report that we were talking about from the beginning here notes that just 2 days later, that is 2 days after August 1st, 2018, so that would be 1 year ago tomorrow, 2 days later, after the acquisition of Westinghouse gets government approval and completes its acquisition, 2 days later, Brookfield Asset Management, which has just been approved by the government to buy Westinghouse Electric for the purpose of selling nuclear power plants to the Saudis and the UAE, closes another deal. It is a 99-year lease. Are you ready for this one, Armando? It's a 99-year lease of a property in New York, 666 Fifth Avenue. Has anybody heard of this building? Do you know what it is? Yes, of course. It's the flagship property of the Kushner Companies, the distressed building owned by the Kushner Companies, as they put it here, Jared Kushner's family real estate firm. The property was a financial burden on Kushner Companies, and the group was facing a $1.4 billion mortgage payment the following February. A spokesperson for Kushner did not immediately respond to a request for comment from ABC News, surprisingly enough. But yes, this was the one that he was seeking a $1 billion infusion from, well, the United Arab Emirates Sovereign Wealth Fund, for one, and they said, I don't think so. So he went to the Qatari Sovereign Wealth Fund, and they said, I don't think so. So far, no one was giving him the $1 billion that he needed to make this happen. And I guess they finally eventually found it. He sought it from Chinese investors. He's globe-trotting, looking for $1 billion to save this building. Brookfield Asset Management got the go-ahead from the government that no other government would likely ever have given anybody to buy Westinghouse Electric and turn it into the manufacturer of 35 plus nuclear power plants across the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And P.S. the Saudis and UAE sheikhs are maybe buying this key national security asset. But don't worry, Rick Perry, Bill Barr, Mick Mulvaney, Wilbur Ross, and Steve Mnuchin are on the case. They're making sure, and Mike Pompeo, making sure that everything's on the up and up here. So don't worry about it. All right. I guess at the time Barr probably wasn't Attorney General. I don't know at that point. In August of 2018, was that Matt Whitaker? Was it still Jeff Sessions? I'm not sure. You could look that up, but no, neither of the other two of them inspire any more confidence than Bill Barr did. All right. To conclude this article, just before we move on to other subjects, advocates of the Saudi nuclear plan have repeatedly raised concerns about the stringent laws governing the transfer of nuclear technology. We hate these stupid regulations, including a provision of the United States Atomic Energy Act, which is totally dumb and sucks, that would require Saudi Arabia to sign an agreement effectively promising any nuclear technology obtained from the United States would only be used for civilian purposes. You would think that would be the minimum necessary demand, right? Emails cited in the report from IP3 and nuclear industry officials show that advocates for the U.S.-Saudi proposal believed the strict requirements would be a total roadblock for an agreement with Saudi Arabia. No other government would let it happen, you see? Though Saudi Arabia has pursued a nuclear program to challenge Iran's influence in the region for some time. In early 2018, IP3 officials began exploring a partnership with South Korean companies, interesting, in a potential effort to circumvent the strict U.S. rules and begin discussing the new potential collaboration with administration officials. How so? The Saudis are not interested in any agreement that provides less freedom in the nuclear arena than what the U.S. afforded Iran, their sworn enemy, under the last administration. An executive for a company that had invested in IP3 said in an email cited in the report, a reference to Saudi concerns that the Iran nuclear deal would improve their rivals' standing in the region. Efforts to advance the idea through the administration continue. On February 12, 2019, Trump and Perry met with nuclear energy company executives and IP3 officials at the White House about nuclear power in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. I don't think there's ever been such a meeting before. The meeting was prompted by a request from Trump to retired General Jack Kane, an IP3 co-founder and director who met with the president and chief of staff Mick Mulvaney in January. No need for a letter to the president now. General Jack Kane met with the president on Friday with Mulvaney, his chief of staff, in the room. Kane said I don't know whether it's Keen or Kane, Keane, said the meeting could not have gone better. A nuclear energy company official wrote in a January 13th, 2019 email cited in the report. That's actually the end of the article, which again is a sort of an anticlimactic finish to the thing. And I guess their legal department prevents them from drawing the conclusions that we do from all of this. But I just thought it was important to throw in all of that at the end, right? Jared Kushner is the one who's in contact with Barak. Barak is begging him to prevail on his father-in-law to make him special envoy to the Middle East, charged with implementing some economic policy. But on the side, he's already got in mind what that economic policy is. And it involves buying Westinghouse Electric and selling 30 nuclear power plants to Middle Eastern dictators, and making himself extraordinarily rich. And I don't know, I guess that wasn't enough. Barak's friendship with Trump maybe wasn't enough to get Kushner interested in pushing this thing through. And it still hasn't happened. He still doesn't have a government position, which is a really curious part. But I guess maybe as a pot sweetener, they said, well, I'll tell you what, the deal with Blackstone fell apart. Maybe I could put this deal together with another financial group that might also, I don't know, sign a 99-year lease for the one building that threatens to collapse the entire Kushner empire and solve all of your problems with this deal. You couldn't get the Qataris to bail you out. You couldn't get the Saudis to directly bail you out. You couldn't get the UAE to directly bail you out, but they'll indirectly bail you out by agreeing to purchase 30-plus nuclear power plants from the new owners of Westinghouse, which happens to be the Brookfield Asset Management Group. And now they've got the cash to sign a 99-year lease, probably for something in the neighborhood of $1 billion to $1.4 billion, I would guess. I wonder if there's reporting out there on how much they're paying. And that might just do the trick for you. And with that problem solved, would you be willing to talk to your father-in-law about getting this done? And I don't know whether the answer came back, we can do the deal, but we can't put you in government, or what. I'm not certain what level of corruption would Barak have to be directly involved in order to warn Trump off of putting him there. I don't know. Unless maybe Kushner told him, I'm getting a huge benefit out of this deal. Other of your friends can get huge benefits out of this deal. Barak is getting a huge benefit out of this deal. There's no reason to also give him the special envoy job unless we can leverage something else out of him. It's not so much that we're worried about trouble. It can't be the case, considering what we're just about to approve. It must instead just be, well, why throw that in for free when we might be able to squeeze him for something else in order to get him into that position? That's the only thing I can think of. Anyway, thought I would put all that out there and thereby finish up this bifurcated story. I'm still not clear on what ABC News, why they decided to separate the two, but both stories did need separate attention, and maybe that has something to do with it. All right. I thought that was pretty damn interesting. I guess a number of other items up for discussion. With the door as always open though for Joan McCarter. Joan, if you're listening and feel like you're ready and you want to jump in, that's fine. If you want to wait until the next break, I don't know, however you want to do it. There are other crazy stories out there, though, that I thought I might throw in here. I think this one's relatively quick. Maybe we can start with this since we spent so much time on Ratcliffe yesterday and mentioned him again today. Will Sommer at the Daily Beast had this interesting tidbit under the headline, Trump intel pick John Ratcliffe started theory of FBI anti-Trump secret society. I think we mentioned that he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist. How far does it go? Well, the congressman debuted this mysterious text messages idea for Fox News. It became a mini scandal before the full context became known. That's the subheader there. Full context reported this way. Donald Trump's new pick for Director of National Intelligence played a role last year in popularizing what briefly became one of the right's most easily debunked conspiracy theories. I guess it's good that he only traffics in easily debunked ones, maybe, about the investigations into the president and Russia, offering what he presented as evidence of an anti-Trump secret society operating within the FBI. That certainly deserves dramatic music. John Ratcliffe, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, has been an outspoken critic of the FBI's investigation into contacts between Trump's campaign and Russia before the 2016 election. Like other Republicans, he seized on the text messages between FBI officials Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, who were having an affair, as proof that the FBI, as a whole, had been biased against Trump in the run-up to the election. This all comes from Ratcliffe, and they're going to make that guy, they think, DNI. No danger there. One of Ratcliffe's biggest contributions to the Republican pushback on the investigation came in January of 2018, when he claimed he had seen text messages between the two that suggested the existence of a secret society working against Trump. But Ratcliffe's claims, which were subsequently amplified by the pro-Trump media outlets, fell apart when the fuller text exchanges became public. Ratcliffe's congressional office didn't respond to requests for comment. No surprise there. Ratcliffe was also accused Tuesday of embellishing his record on an anti-terrorism case. We've already spoken about that. I guess, do they talk about how this thing actually unraveled? Because we kind of skipped that. We know that happened, and we knew that they were promoting that theory and that it ended up collapsing, but I don't remember all the details. And just sort of wondering if we can recap those with Ratcliffe now in the story. Ratcliffe, who was tapped by Trump to succeed the departing Dan Coats, first made the FBI secret society claim during a January 22nd, 2018 appearance on Fox News. We learned today about information that in the immediate aftermath of his election, there may have been a secret society of folks within the Department of Justice and the FBI, to include Page and Strzok, working against him, Ratcliffe said. I'm not saying that actually happened, but when folks speak in those terms, they need to come forward and explain the context, and I guess they did. According to then Representative Trey Gowdy, remember that guy, who appeared alongside Ratcliffe on Fox News that day, it was Ratcliffe himself who, what were we saying here, who was responsible for discovering the supposedly incriminating text messages. Ratcliffe followed that cable news appearance by promoting his claim on Twitter, saying the text messages were proof of, quote, manifest bias at the top of the FBI. The text between Strzok and Page referenced a secret society, Ratcliffe tweeted. While he was still making those claims, Ratcliffe never described the full text message that he was quoting from. Still, right-wing media picked up his explosive notion that an anti-Trump cabal inside the FBI was at work. Daily Caller declared that Ratcliffe had found proof of an anti-Trump secret society at the FBI and trumpeted that. And a day afterwards, Ron Johnson moved the conspiracy further, claiming the Republican investigators had learned of meetings of an off-site secret society from an informant. And let's see. I was scrolling down here to see how much longer until they finally unravel the thing. But Joan is here. Joan, do you remember this one probably, yeah?
Yeah, I remember a lot of
wasn't it the case?
Stupidity.
Yeah. Is my recollection correct that it turned out to be the case? They did, in fact, eventually have to answer questions, and they were like, yeah, we were joking. It was tongue-in-cheek. Ooh, a secret society. You could almost hear my dramatic music playing in the background of their text messages. And so they came forward, answered questions. Yeah, no secret society. It was me and some friends saying, our secret society should replace the president. And also, whatever, knock 50% off the price of a Big Mac because I love him, whatever. Anyway, so he'll be the director of national intelligence unless somebody does something about it. But
probably, Burr clearly is not terribly thrilled with this one.
Yeah, that seems true.
And this is the fun part, the deciding vote on the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is divided 8-7.
Yes.
Susan Collins.
All right. She must be deeply concerned about that.
Deeply concerned.
That's the way she, So they'll add that to their B-roll for the ad that's running about her talking about how deeply concerned and terribly upset she is about various things. I noticed that ad and I said, it's like we wrote the ad on the show. But I mean,
isn't it?
It's impossible not to have noticed that independently. Honestly, that's all she says. So that's
all she says, and it's striking to me that that's what she puts out as her B-roll.
Yeah, well, that's her. I guess that's her idea of being moderate about things. Well, moderates are concerned about stuff, I guess.
I guess.
We'll just say that a lot. And, all right. Well, anyway. Yeah.
Speaking of Collins, I'm coming around more and more to the idea that she might just end up retiring.
Yeah. That makes the most sense, I think.
Because I think this is going to be really embarrassing for her. She's never had to run like she's going to have to run this time around.
Yeah. So
because everybody bought it before.
Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of cover. There were other people doing similar things. But Maine, I guess, Maine's woken up quite a bit to, the reality of what it means to be Republican now, thanks to their crazy-ass governor, or ex-governor, thankfully. Mm-hmm. And it disturbed them so deeply that they changed the method by which they elect everybody in the state. So they're not likely to go for it.
Which is one of the things that really has her concerned.
Yeah, deeply. You can tell.
Deeply.
Of course. Yeah, there's no other way to be concerned.
Right? Choice voting could knock her out.
Yeah. It's going to be a few minutes on those fries. Is that okay? I'm deeply concerned. Okay. Well, we'll get them to you as soon as possible. Just pull up a little bit, and we'll bring them out to your car. Man, no reason for concern.
Did you see what she did yesterday?
No, not.
She invoked Lieberman.
To what end?
Made everything all too perfect. She and Lieberman were the two apparently who say they offered the ODNI creation legislation in the first place. I didn't remember that. It's probably true.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
it sounds
what
like
does
the
that
kind of
do?
thing they would do.
Yeah, I sure. It's just the sort of thing that makes normal people say, "What is that anyway?" Because
offering up Joe Lieberman as proof of her moderation and goodwill was very Susan Collins.
Yeah, right. To show you how in touch with America I am, I worked with a guy who was thrown out of office unceremoniously a long time ago, and who everybody in his party thinks of as a joke. Oh. Well,
everybody in both parties.
That is true. Yeah, that could be. I mean, she doesn't, but,
No.
She's crazy.
But she's Susan Collins.
Right, yeah. So there you have it. So it's
pretty
like...
So I think we're going to have a ticket of Lieberman Collins for America, or America for Lieberman Collins, rather.
Right, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, sure, that'll be great.
Fight over who gets top billing.
Their logo will be a bowl of hard candy. It's so in touch with what we're into these days. Oh, thank you. Oh, ribbon candy from 1962, covered in dust. Yum. Thanks, Grandma. All right. Well, I hope her time there is over. Everyone should, and she's been a joke for quite a while now, and I think she's a relic of even of Maine's politics. So hopefully she's gone.
As much as I would have great satisfaction in beating her.
Yes, sure.
We could use the energy and the money elsewhere.
Yeah.
In taking back Senate seats. So.
That would be good. And, She may be a soft target. That would maybe be a nice thing, but who knows? She may learn to play dirty yet. She hasn't done very well with it so far. That you mentioned the B-roll that she put out there. That's a story I don't think we ever mentioned, but I guess this is the new tactic among hardballers. They film a bunch of reaction shots of themselves, just standard stock footage of themselves in meetings with people who look like they're business people or whatever, and they just say they circulate memos to say, in case there's anybody out there who would want to do an independent expenditure, for which we absolutely will not be, directly coordinating with you because that would be illegal. You can find at the following website all sorts of footage for free that you can use to cut a commercial to help us out, in case someone wanted to do that. And apparently that's the super savvy thing to do now. And was it that crazy commercial that strung together all of our deeply concerned things? Did they grab that? Is that where that came from?
Yes.
Okay, so that's
American
perfect.
Bridge grabbed that and made their own ad, which was devastating.
Well, it was great.
Well,
that
I don't know if it was so much devastating as hilarious.
Yes, well,
and it being
that.
hilarious was devastating.
It could be devastating in the long run by demonstrating there are dangers to putting footage out there and inviting anybody who wants to use it to use it.
The last time we saw it was Mitch McConnell.
Yeah,
remember that?
That infamous shot of him sitting at the desk,
making all of
smiling.
his weird smile thing.
Right. Give us the.
It came across as extremely creepy.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a blue steel for us, Senator? All right. Do you have a green turtle for us? Can you do that? All right. There you go. That was the infamous shot of him looking up from the desk, smiling about the paper he is signing in his ridiculous way. I
need to dig that up for Moscow Mitch, I think.
Yeah. And now
the contract he signed with Putin. Or Deripaska.
Signing away whatever's left of his soul, I suppose. You can get Darth to Photoshop a Russian hat on his head for that. And
ooh, I like that idea.
It might work. He's good at putting hats on people. All right. Well, so that was what was on my mind this morning. But I opened the show, and you probably heard me wondering about what your schedule was. I don't know whether the debate is something you would ever want to spend any more time on at all, based on the fact that you had to do this.
We can spend more time on the debate. Was that what Armando wanted to discuss?
Armando had different questions, and maybe I'll see if he's around to engineer his actual asking the questions. But let me see here.
If I have answers, that would be fun.
Okay. Well, let me alert him to the fact that we can do that. And in the meantime,
I'm not making any promises that I'll, be able to answer. But
all right, yeah. I'm looking, and I'm like, he says he's got a question. It's in parts, and he began to put this out, but I can't tell what the questions are. He's given me a note here. Is there objectionable provisions on substance as opposed to timing? Oh, on the debt ceiling deal. Are you prepared to discuss that?
There are two objectionable things that I don't know how necessary they were to be in there. And do we have time before the break to get into it?
No. So, that was set up by me. Thank you for remembering. The alarm is about to go off. But maybe we can engineer the call during the break, and not everybody will have to listen to that part. And then we can get into a bit of that
now
discussion.
We have a teaser for people to stick around until after the break.
Exactly. And now I have to think of another minute's worth of talking about the teaser in order to finish here. So
we can spend a minute on Marianne Williamson and how she became president last night.
Oh, well, today was the day, or yesterday was the day she truly became president.
If Marianne Williamson just ended her statements one sentence before she did, she might not come across as a kook.
Okay.
Because she ended she was like on reparations, she was great.
That is what I heard.
On a lot of things, she was quite great on immigration. And then she ends with a sentence about the evil, dark undercurrent psychic forces in our politics. And it's kind of like, what?
Yeah. Well, okay, that's an interesting way of ending things. But the reparations line got a lot of enthusiasm out in Twitterland anyway, and apparently inside the venue as well. Although I did see people taking pains to point out that I guess she had seeded the crowd very nicely with her supporters, which is what you're supposed to, I guess, be able to do.
That's part of the game. She does know how to do that.
Yeah, so it's not that she's without supporters. We can at least say that much. And they came to hear about the dark psychic forces, so she had to play to her base. There's nothing she could do about it. But the reparations interesting. Sounded pretty interesting. All right, let's take this break and engineer this call. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I don't mean to interrupt the banter, but hopefully we didn't come back in before the rest of that conversation made it to the air. But good morning, kids, if you did, so that's okay. Armando is now with us, and we can turn from the question of the debates, about which I don't actually have any questions, I guess, which is a good reason to turn. But the debt ceiling deal was the subject of your question, Armando. You want to?
Yeah, I know it's a
put
couple
that to
of weeks
Joan?
up, but I never, got to hear Joan's point of view on this. As I heard it, first of all, I was just asking, is there something in the substance of the deal that is particularly objectionable? Because I've heard a lot of discussion about the timing being bad because it only takes us to 2021 and that puts it smack in the middle of the first year of a hopefully new Democratic presidency.
Yep, that's the problem with it. Smack dab in the middle. It's sometime in July, probably the end of July 2021. And yeah, that's kind of short-sighted. There are other things they could have done with the debt ceiling. For example, in the rules that they adopted this year in the House, they said, okay, when you get a budget deal, when you sign a budget deal, that automatically extends the debt ceiling so that, whatever increase you need, it's just baked into the budget deal. They could have asked for something like that on the Senate side, too. So that was short-sighted. The other thing that's problematic with it is that it pretty much negotiates away Congress's power of the purse when it comes to Trump moving money around on the border for border.
Oh wow, that's terrible. That I didn't know.
It says that the House will not attach riders to spending bills to prohibit Trump's ability to move money around.
Why? How could they possibly
And they said,
agree with
okay,
that?
we're not going to mess with the Hyde Amendment either. We're not going to put abortion-related stuff in any spending bills.
That's fine to 2021. The part that, because you're not going to get Hyde anyway, or you're not going to actually
not this year,
remove Hyde.
not this time around. No.
But let's go back to the first thing you said. You can't attach a rider that expressly prohibits use of funds on the border wall?
No.
That's outrageous. How could
and in fact, Patrick Leahy had sort of a tantrum when he saw that. Got talked down.
I'm not talked down. I just found out now. I am I'm about to explode. Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
Why did they do that?
To get it through the Senate more easly, as near as I can tell.
Well,
which
I don't care. That's not my
is
problem. It's their government.
just, not going so well for Mitch McConnell. We find out this morning.
Are you telling
He's
me that?
got
But wait a
whole
second.
slew of Republicans who are not wanting to play along, not wanting to sign it.
But wait a second. Let's take a step back here. Nancy Pelosi shut down the government in January because she was not going to give in to his border wall funding. She just gave in to his border wall funding?
Pretty much.
How does that make any sense? Why couldn't she shut
Well,
the
it makes
government
sense
down
because
again
Trump
on that?
is doing it anyway. I mean, he kind of went around him and is doing it anyway. She's not going to make a stink over it.
Wow.
You've got the district court decision this week. Was it this week or the end of
a couple
last
weeks
week?
ago, and not for nothing. I think that's going to be reversed when it goes to the appellate court. That's frankly, that was that McFadden again, and he's just the Trump judge. When it gets to the D.C. Circuit, it's going to get reversed. Why are you giving that away?
I don't
It would have been a
inexplicable.
great reason to have a big fight again, because that's how you won the first fight in January.
I think
I'm
because
sorry to get all fired up, but it's the first time I heard this.
Frankly, she's scared of the debt ceiling. I don't think she needs to be scared. I mean, they don't want another. I don't even think Trump wants another government shutdown.
I don't know. He wants it.
Well, I'll put it to you this way.
It's hard to
Did
know
you
what
want to
Trump
read? It was her moment of triumph. A shutdown for debt ceiling or whatever is the same if the reason that the deal doesn't happen is because of border money, wall money. It's crazy. Now, there was a deal that she did on border funding that it had humanitarian stuff, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's part of it.
Restrictions.
It does increase spending a great deal for the humanitarian side.
No, but that wasn't this deal. That was a different deal. That wasn't the budget. That wasn't the debt ceiling deal. That was just that one piece of legislation. The debt ceiling, I can't fathom why the Congress would ever agree that they can't restrict the use of funds. That's the whole power they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the 3D chess thing is there. I mean, you could opt not to have that fight while still retaining that power. I don't see why you would give it away in an agreement unless, I don't know, maybe somehow the agreement. I don't know how it's worded. I mean, maybe they actually think it's not binding in any way, but
that could be.
Know.
That could be. And budget deals really are not binding.
Yeah, right.
They're just saying this is how much money you have to play with. They're only binding in that they prevent government shutdowns.
I guess.
I don't know. I mean, to me, you could have.
It was huge. It was a blunder.
Ceiling, just do a clean debt ceiling and just raise it that way. I mean,
yeah,
honestly,
but I know. Yes, but clean. Do them separately. Do them clean. If it could work that way with Mitch McConnell.
Well, who cares? Trump is president. Shutdowns hurt them, not us.
Yep.
That is true.
Yeah, debt ceiling's a little scarier than, and according to Munchkin, it's going to happen within the next 3 or 4 weeks if it's not raised. So they would still be out when we hit the debt ceiling.
Well, that's good.
All of the things are exhausted. All of the things that they can do to avoid it have been exhausted.
Which is another reason.
And that is, that's rightfully a scary thing to be staring you in the face.
So at what point, what would it lead to if there's a debt ceiling? What does it lead to? It would lead to a government shutdown, presumably. We're not going to default on
more
our
than
debt.
that. I guess that it creates that threat.
Stop spending money.
The uncertainty of is Trump going to be willing to default on the debt? We don't know. He could do anything. So there's the madman theory of Trump going underwriting all of this. We've already had, the last time this happened, we did have a credit downgrade.
that doesn't matter. I mean, the credit
No,
agencies are. I just tell you, the credit agencies are meaningless these days. The United States will pay whatever interest rate is the lowest on the market. It's just, I can't believe that. I'm actually now very upset. Sorry.
Oh well, didn't mean to ruin your day, but
I'm sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
did.
I have to
What
be
a
the
terrible
bad
thing.
news, but,
You
know, if
asked.
you read me every day.
Yeah, I know. It was my fault.
There you
I
go.
forgot about it.
right, you should have been depressed quietly on your own in your house. Left the rest of us alone.
But I don't get I just don't get the strategy. Again,
I'm not sure.
Nancy Pelosi, to her credit, shut the government down
Mm-hmm.
over this issue.
And then gave this away. Yes.
What was all that about then?
I don't know. I imagine we'll find out because one of the things that the first thing you mentioned, talk about bad timing. I mean, it's more than just bad timing for the next Democratic president. If the next debt ceiling crisis arrives in July of their first year in office, July of 2021. But I mean, July is a terrible time to drop this thing at all. Because of what you just mentioned, they're gone. They'll leave.
Because yes, August recess.
Yeah,
they're doing this on purpose now, and I don't know why. Setting up everything for maximum pressure points of having it happen just before August recess, just before Christmas.
Yeah,
just before the end of the fiscal year.
That's the only way that I think they've gotten used to. That's the only way you can get people to bend in their positions. But I mean, that's bad policy making is usually
very bad policy making, and it's infuriating, and it's just adds to the turmoil of it all.
Go out.
Yeah, it was dumb. It was dumb.
I would have made a different argument on the timing, just as a possibility to defend it a little bit. But now I'm so mad about the other thing.
Well, that's a part of coalition
building.
Okay.
The good side is that there is parity in spending increases between domestic and defense spending.
All right.
And finally, the sequester is going to be gone.
Yeah, that's fine, but
it busts the stupid 2011 Budget Control Act where Obama caved, and we don't have the sequester anymore. We're not going to have any more super committees. We're not going to have any of that bullshit with the sequester being gone.
Kids. Think of the kids, Joan. We're going to have to put you on 5-second delay.
Yeah, they're going to have to pay this too. In addition,
here's the defense I would have tried to structure. If I wasn't so mad about the other thing, I'll give it to you anyway. It's actually a perfect time to actually set up a nuking the filibuster, it seems to me, if we somehow have 50 or 51 votes in the Senate, which is remote. It's not likely to happen that way, so it probably doesn't work anyway. But if you were, let's say you were at 50 Democrats and the Vice President, whoever, Vice President Delaney, was a tie-breaking vote. Then you could say, look, we can't pass this, we can't do that. We have no choice but to nuke the filibuster on legislation, and that's it. It'd be a perfect setup for that. That would be the one 11-dimensional chess argument I could make in favor of it. You set up we're going to shut down the government if we don't nuke the filibuster. It's not a bad
default on the debt, rather.
Point. It has a lot of contingency, but that's the only.
Nuking the filibuster on spending bills is going to be our big challenge.
Well, that's the whole point. This would be the perfect setup to me. I mean, it's a remote possibility, but suppose the choice was nuke the filibuster.
Here's the thing that makes it even a dumber thing. You've got to go into this assuming Mitch McConnell's still going to be in control of the Senate in 2021.
I agree with that. I think that's a more realistic take. The argument I'm making is very contingent, almost, frankly, unlikely. Because if we win, we'll probably have more. They wouldn't. And at that point in the first term, the Republicans in the Senate are not going to. They'll negotiate, but they'll back down. They're not the crazy Freedom Caucus people. So most likely you'd get 8, 9 votes, whatever you need to to pass something out of the Republicans. But I'm just looking for a line of defense there. But it's not much. That's the best fake news I can give you, and it's not much of anything. Plus, to give away that thing you told me in the beginning about the board, you're going to let Trump do it again, but with a better argument in court because you agreed that you weren't going to challenge
in the budget agreement. They said they could. Yep. It was dumb. It was unnecessary. How she got everybody on board with that in the House, I don't know.
Probably no one knew it was in there.
No, we talked about it. We knew it was in there.
Well, I don't know. I don't get that at all. And I know she's the master of the House, blah, 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 but it doesn't make sense to me.
Did all the did literally every Democrat go
Not
along
every,
with it? Okay, but so there were some holdouts, but okay, close.
And I think if there were defections, it was Blue Dogs, if I remember correctly, just because Blue Dogs money deficit, pretending that they care. Nobody cares about the deficit, by the way. That
would be interesting. I mean, just in terms of the now, I think, dissipating acrimony of the squad fight, if they went along with it knowing that there was this concession in there and say, well, we can't have this fight twice. We stood up for what we should be standing up for on the, I guess on the first go round of the deal making and border funding question, and everybody reacted negatively to that we would stand up for ourselves there, and made a big deal out of there being this split with the leadership. So, okay, three-dimensional chess lady, go for it this time.
I'm going to switch gears on you guys just as it just occurred to me, because these are pragmatic versus progressive stuff, and that's the fight CNN, I guess, tried to foment yesterday. The problem is their so-called centrists were such non-entities that it almost seems like a silly fight. I know they came out with those headlines this morning, all the CNN and all these people. Oh, disarray. But John Delaney, nobody cares about John Delaney.
Nobody cares about John Delaney. They care even less about Hickenlooper.
Or Tim Ryan.
Or Ryan.
You can't pick that fight that way. Yeah. If CNN wanted to have the fight, they needed to put Biden with Bernie and Warren.
Yeah.
Because you're actually not even going to have that fight.
No, because those guys don't matter. Those guys don't matter now. It was the luck of their lottery.
Bad programming.
And by the way, they've got to figure out a better way to do this. All of the people of color who are running are in tonight's debate.
Well, that's why it's not going to be that same fight in many ways. The fights will be about Biden saying good things about, segregationists again. It's going to be like that.
But it was a little weird that the luck of the draw from CNN ended up with last night's panel being Lily White.
Well,
it was
there's
very
a lot
strange.
of white people running for president, as it turns
out.
But
it did point out the fact that all of those middle-aged white men are need to go.
Yeah, it's all represented by one guy.
Honestly,
when John Delaney was trying to mansplain to Elizabeth Warren, it was just so apparent and so awful, and made him look so bad that was helpful.
I mean, I didn't see it. I'm sure you're correct. Who cares about John Delaney? It's the whole point from it. You're not CNN.
Well, you only care about John Delaney and seeing Elizabeth Warren slap him down.
So he's a good foil.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, who cares? I hate to put it that way.
No, I know.
I read it was like nobody cares about John Delaney or Tim Ryan or whoever else.
No. Well, we're not getting any complaints.
If Warren and Sanders didn't have an interesting conversation, much less to say debate about this, that, or the other, then last night was I just find it to have been a waste of time. Nobody will remember this. They will not remember this debate by tonight.
What will be remembered was CNN, or at least on our side, CNN trying so hard to place it in a Republican context.
Well, that's Jake Tapper.
You
That's what he
crazy
does.
socialists! You know.
I mean, all I heard about was Jake Tapper interrupting everybody, but I didn't see it, so it's hard for me to...
What Tapper was trying to do was to create this fight. And the interruptions weren't so bad. It was just the way he framed the whole thing of Delaney versus Warren, Hick versus Sanders. It was...
Here's the problem. Again, I go back to my problem. Nobody cares about those people.
No, they care about Biden.
Exactly. You have to have Biden on the stage to do that. And since they didn't, he should have had a different take. I mean, it just doesn't work to set it up that way. By the way, this is the last debate where these guys will be there.
Yeah.
They won't make the September cut. So it'll probably be 10 to 12. And I don't know if they divide it up then, too, but I imagine they'll try to just do it with 12, I guess. I don't know if they have that many.
It'll be
Ryan de Blasio.
I mean, there were so many substantive issues they didn't get to last night because Tapper wanted to have his food fights. Not a thing about the Supreme Court, not a thing about Roe, not a thing about filibuster, not a thing about what happens if you got Mitch McConnell. In terms of, I hate to give any props at all to Chuck Todd, but at least in the MSNBC debate, there was more substance.
Well, that's Jake Tapper. I mean, I know I'm less on an island, but I've been on an island for a decade saying he's terrible. I think you guys know the story that I wrote a nasty thing about him 10 years ago, and he complained to Marcus about it.
Yes.
Oh, well. Yeah, he's got a lot of complaints about a lot of us.
About all of us, right?
Yeah.
But I do think he's terrible.
It wasn't a service, and it is very difficult in 1 minute segments to get into substance.
Well, there's too many people.
But Warren and Sanders did, frankly, they were able to.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully they did well and were able to propound their ideas. I mean, I
think on this one, obviously the Daily Coast poll was skewed because we always get the Sanders folks freeping it, but I honestly did think Sanders probably had the best night, particularly compared to his performance the first time.
Okay.
Clearly, he and Warren wiped the floor with everybody else.
Okay. Well, the problem is they have to wipe the floor with Listen, but here's my problem with that take, and I agree with it most likely, but I didn't see it, but wiping the floor with Elaine,
I know, with the useless people.
It's like doing nothing. It's like if a tree falls in the forest, who cares?
Well, you wipe the floor with the opponents you have, not the
Beto
opponent.
and Buttigieg hanging out. Beto has more substance. Buttigieg has a much better performance.
Yeah.
I
guess so.
They all need to go away, frankly. But
Buttigieg is going to be there. They actually will be there in September, and it'll be interesting to see how they do in a smaller.
Yeah,
it's going to be more focused.
By the way, this is something that doesn't get a lot of attention. Buttigieg is following the Biden model of fundraising, which
what is that?
People are talking about a whole lot. I mean, to see Pete Buttigieg, you've got to buy $100 ticket. You get a picture with him, you got to spend $1,000. That's precisely what Biden's doing. In fact, this week in Idaho, because he's got to go to Sun Valley to get his big money.
Yeah.
And then doing a thing here in Boise that you've got to spend $100 to get in on. So Buttigieg is the bright, new, shiny thing doing things differently. Not so much.
No, of course not. It's listen, we've seen this. I just don't think. Look, to me, it's down to the four. I don't imagine. I mean, I've been holding out hope that Beto could break through, but apparently he just can't. He doesn't. Yeah, he hasn't. Whatever the reason is, he doesn't. So really, it's Warren, Sanders, Biden, and Harris, in my view.
Yeah.
And at some point in September, particularly,
Castro doing a good job of running for VP.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That's a fair assessment of it.
That's where we are. I didn't even see the debate, but here I am with all my opinions. I do think
some of this.
So that one of the reasons I didn't watch it was because I knew it just look, if CNN wanted to stage this centrist versus progressives contest, you got to wait till the leading centrist is there. That's just my fundamental programming note to Jeff Zucker. You can't have the debate Jake Tapper wanted to have when you don't have Joe Biden on the stage. It's sort of pointless.
Does the same crew run tonight's debate?
Who else have they got to run?
I don't know. I mean,
well, I don't know who they had last night. It was Jake and who else?
Dana Bash and Don Lemon.
Oh, God.
Oh, well.
I mean, I like Don Lemon, but not as a debate moderator.
Actually, he got to some of the more interesting questions. It was this was also something in terms of optics that made CNN look a little weird. He had all of the people of color questions, which
that's my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and did get into some good stuff. Some of the more interesting discussion was around race relations, reparations.
I get that. Did you?
But yeah, having Don Lemon be the guy who did that was.
Yeah, it's not great. Well, so I mean, I hope they don't have Chris Cuomo tonight, but they probably do.
It would probably be. Cuomo, Cooper, does Cooper do? Yeah, he moderates.
Yes, Cooper will do it. Cuomo and Wolf, Blitzer maybe. No, they have to have a woman.
They have to have a woman.
So maybe they'll. I mean, they should. Maybe I don't know who they have though. They've really mistreated most of their good women.
Yeah.
I don't care for Dana Bash. I think she's just. There's nothing to her.
So you didn't see a lot of coordination. Here I am going to be my TV critic.
Yeah.
You didn't see a lot of coordination between the three of them. It was a bit herky-jerky in that they had their own agendas. You know, Tapper doing the food fight thing, Bash doing the I don't know exactly what.
Hey, what? Well, there was some kind of nuclear attack question. What was that about?
Oh yeah, no first strike.
Wow.
Elizabeth
Weird thing to ask about.
is going to have a no first strike policy.
Well, obviously, at this point, we have a no first strike policy. I mean, you're an expert on that stuff. I know you have your postgraduate degree and all that. But all that nuclear game stuff is so 1980s. I mean,
it very much so, and that was the thought I had last night. We are in an entirely different world. So trying to force this into the Cold War frame. I mean, the war with Russia is very different now.
The only thing I might have said if I was
didn't even get into Moscow
is, I would have said, this is why Donald Trump can't be president. We don't have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only context in which asking about first strikes makes any sense.
And Warren that was the context of her answer.
Okay.
You know, we've got Trump. We've got to fix this. We've got to fix where we're at in the world now because of Trump.
Yeah. Well, there's no policy you can come. It doesn't matter what your policy is if Trump has the weapons.
I mean, again, I always thought there was a little bit, intellectual mental masturbation with it. And no offense to your graduate degree, Joan. I know it's important.
Not
it was
that.
important at the time, but firing nuclear weapons is unthinkable. I mean, we're just never going to do it. No one's going to do it.
Trump would do it.
Except for maybe this crazy man who we've elected, who's sitting in the Oval Office right now. But no other person would do that. Of course, that's the reason why he never should be there. But there you go.
If Kim had him, he'd do it.
Yes.
I don't think so. I actually think I think he threatened to do it. Again, that's actually an interesting point. What is Kim really about? He's about
he kills off his family members with no compunction. True.
He may do it, but they might not work. That's also a possibility.
That's
I actually just think we have no time, but I think the logic to Kim's argument for having nuclear weapons, as it would be for Iran, is as deterrence. If you invade me, I'll fire nuclear weapons at your allies because I'm crazy. I mean, that was Saddam Hussein's argument when he was pretending to have them when he didn't have them. Anyway, you're out of time, and this is a very complicated issue. Certainly that's something that should have been brought up in one question.
that might have come up at some point. All right, well, I think, I suppose those of you who have the stomach for it can watch tonight. Are you live blogging tonight too?
Taking the helm tonight.
Okay.
I'll watch.
Fine.
What everybody else is like, we have a great bulletin in our system. Right.
Okay, well, we'll all be watching along. I don't know whether I'm going to actually make myself watch or not, but we can watch along with Twitter and, of course, with Daily Coast. So Mark will take over the duties. I guess the moderators are going to be the same, so we're stuck with those guys. I checked into that.
God.
But,
All right.
all right, we'll live with it, and Mark will make it palatable as you did last night, and we'll discuss it further, see whether there's any explosives tomorrow. Thanks, both of you, for coming on and helping fill the time and discuss the topics of the day.
Thanks, man.
You're most welcome.
Okay, we'll check in with you again next week, and maybe sooner with Armando. And by the way, always available for you. If anything pisses you off, Joan, even just for 5 minutes, call us and let us know, by all means.
Will do.
All right, thanks, and take care, everybody. We turn things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next. Let me see if I can't bring up a quick summary that I can fit in after this about what's coming up.
From Daily Co's Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
With David Waldman.
You know what? Let's start down at the bottom where he covers the international news. We sometimes don't get to that. The chef's table, as he calls it, where France slammed Trump's absurd threats and insults about their wine, and Trump will visit Poland, don't forget Poland, to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Nazi invasion in World War II. Good people on both sides.